Cool. So Asha Tan, welcome to the Naked Ambition podcast. It's so good to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Cool. So how have things been for you and the Coinjar team over, it's probably been a pretty wild last 12 months, I would imagine, with everyone going pretty crazy over cryptos and coming right back into the spotlight. What's it been for you over there for the last 12 months?
I mean, it's not surprising and not surprising at the same time. We've been doing this for 8 years now. It was the company's 8th birthday just last week. So when we started, the price of Bitcoin was just about $100. And there were talk that, it was a bubble at that time. And I guess, we were at the right place at the right time, saw it go up to 1,000, come crashing down, another phenomenal rise to 20,000 over the 17-18 period. And then it's been quietish until I guess maybe the later half of last year, with obviously, and I guess still now, in May, still seeming to be in the swing of things of a full bull market.
Tell us about how you were so early to the party, because 8 years ago was incredibly early when it came to even thinking, I mean, especially in Australia. So you were definitely one of the first to launch, if not the first wallet here in Australia.
Yeah, I think there were a few of us who started just about the same time in 2013. So it was early. To be a bit earlier, my co-founder, Ryan, was predated even that. And I think he sold his first Bitcoin company just before he turned 18. And that was even earlier, I think in 2011, 2012, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I read first about Bitcoin online, and as I was working as an analyst in Melbourne, and reading these articles about Bitcoin in the early days, and reading about my co-founder eventually as well, Ryan, and his website that he made, and which was attracting a lot of professional traders from Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan. And he got a byline in a newspaper. So I think that was my first inclination. And I read that and I was like, there's a guy who's, 5 years younger than me, hardly out of high school, working on this new cryptocurrency thing. So I think that was like, Ryan was maybe before me, but I think that was the first time I really thought, hey, this might be something.
And how did you get in touch with Ryan? How did that relationship start?
Yeah, I just stalked him online as you would do for but yeah, I mean, I just messaged him on social media, saying, hey, I read a story about you. I need to find out if it's true. So at that time he just moved to Australia. And so, we met up and I asked him, did you really do that? And, how did you build a company? And, he told me, I guess that he read a lot of literature online about startups, and it wasn't, a fluke in the sense of, I just had an idea which turned into a business. He had some sort of methodology that, he had read, and he gave me a lot of literature to go. And, it was the Y Combinator program, which I guess, that probably the blueprint for many of the current big unicorns around.
Wow. Hey, hold on. I'm just going to get rid of some background. 1 second.
Okay.
So cool. I think you've got a pen. Have you got a pen in your hand?
Yeah, I might click
Oh, yeah,
it.
cool.
That's
No, I
me.
do that sometimes. But I think, oh, that's
Fidget.
amazing. Yes, because I was, so we have followed your progress at Coinjar really closely, because I actually remember so clearly the first presentation I ever went to back in the hub really early days in Melbourne. I think you gave a presentation, might have even been you and Ryan, about this thing called Bitcoin, and the room was packed, and it was packed with, I think, mostly very dubious people who were saying, what was this thing going to be? It's going to be this sort of huge bubble. And I just remember this amazing enthusiasm from both of you who were so confident that this was, it was really going to be something. So it's pretty impressive to make such a big bet on it back then with the company.
Yeah, I mean, the early days was, it was very community focused. It was quite grassroots.
Yeah.
I think some people talk about how technology is adopted, and sometimes, it comes from the top, it comes from the military, which sort of, comes into everyday life. But I think Bitcoin, it's very community focused, and I think that was, I guess, where we drew a bit of energy, meetups, talking in small groups about some of these ideas, which, have made it what it is today.
Mm. What are you seeing for the future, both you and Ryan? What do you think is the next sort of 5 years in crypto? Where do you want to take Coinjar?
Yeah, I think if anything, everyone asks, are we mainstream yet, and what does mainstream adoption, look like? And if anything, we're probably closer than we've ever been. Um, I think people are still trying to understand where it fits in society. Is this a new type of money? Is this replacing the old financial system? Government's going to get in? Are banks going to get in? But definitely, it feels a lot more tangible than it did, I guess, 8 years ago. I think the products and the services we offer are going to change as more people get into it. It's not an enthusiast sort of a niche uh, transaction system or payment system or investment system anymore. I guess it means a lot of different things to different people. You've seen types of NFTs, which seem to be the newest craze, how artists are using tokens, to promote themselves. So I think we're still reimagining how the next 5 years will go, but it's probably not going to be quite like the last five.
I've actually seen you talk a little bit about stable coins, and that may be one of the bigger triggers to help cryptos go mainstream. What do you think about that now?
Yeah, I think stablecoins have been around for some time. I think that maybe the unsung hero of some of the crypto economy that make things work. Um, you know, Price fluctuations and are great sometimes for investment, but at sometimes you need a stable, layer of finance, and that's what stable coins bring. And I guess, from those ideas, you've seen governments try to adopt central bank digital currencies, obviously slower moving than the rest of the internet. But you've seen private companies as well, such as Facebook, have a few goes at uh, Libra or their own stablecoin payment system, which has also faced some setbacks. But I think if anything, these people are more sure they're on their way than ever before.
Yeah. Maybe just for anyone who's kind of new to this as well, do you want to explain stable coins and what they mean?
Yeah, so I guess if you think of Bitcoin, which fluctuates wildly in price, or other cryptocurrencies, stable coins are pegged to a national currency, usually the US dollar, but we've seen other types of stable coins as well.
And what else do you think might be sort of some of those drivers, or what would you like to even see happen in this area to make it a bit more mainstream?
I think we still have a lot to go in usability aspects of cryptocurrency. It's still quite cumbersome to use for most parts. It can be quite slow, and there's quite a bit of user error. So, I mean, companies like us, that's where most of our focus goes into, providing a service that makes it accessible to more people. And if you want to get to the next 5 years of consistent growth, then it's going to be a demographic who actually needs better services. I mean, there are some interesting aspects of Bitcoins, such as self-custody, where you can hold your own coins and you don't even have to trust a third-party company or intermediary. But most people don't use those tools just because it's too hard to use. So I think we still have quite a lot to go to make that a reality.
Such an interesting time for it as well. How do you, just kind of switching gears a little bit to Coinjar more specifically, how do you guys make sort of design decisions about which features you bring in? What do you prioritize? Because you started purely as a wallet. And then since then, over the last 8 years, you've added a number of different features and obviously coins onto the platform. How do you make those decisions as a team?
I wish I could give you a a three-step process of how it works, but it's equal parts, I guess, intuition and chaos, I would say.
Business.
I think unlike many other industries or markets, um, this cryptocurrency is still so brand new, and it doesn't really have a template of how or what it should look like. You know, if you ask someone 5 years ago to think about the hottest, fastest growing currency in the world, no one would have thought a dog would be on the face of it.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it's still we try and we are users of our own product ourselves.
Mm.
We try to build for ourselves. I mean,
Mhm.
it's not always the right answer, but I guess we like to build product. The team is all very hands-on, very product driven and focused. So I think that's sort of our benchmark. Core company value is objectively better financial experiences. So I guess the litmus test for things we want to build for others and for ourselves is, do we believe this is provably better? Is this better for our customers? Does that make them in a stronger financial position with our tools or not? So I guess that's a sort of a North Star.
And so those, yeah, I think that's smart as well, because it's being in an industry where things are so uncharted. It's, I imagine, quite difficult to look to. I mean, there's probably some competitors you can look to, but to look to, what is that path? Which path do I take? Who do I learn from? Which is something we talk a lot about, in design. All good design is redesign.
Mhm.
So I think for you, it's probably quite a unique situation. What about? Can you tell us about the whole kind of meme coin movement a little bit? Because that's sort of something I think people have seen a lot of press about, but don't know a lot about. And even I struggled. I do follow this quite a bit, but I really struggled to understand what were the big drivers behind some of those wild moves. Is it just purely everyone piling in and fear of missing out, or what happened there with, is it Dogcoin?
Dogecoin.
Dogecoin.
Dogecoin with a J, with a
G, isn't
silent G.
it? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, silent G. Okay, cool. Dogecoin.
Yeah, I mean, there is an element, as I said before, these are community currencies. They are driven by communities. Some of these communities like extremely speculative behavior. There's some element of very, wealthy holders trying to manipulate the market
Mm.
um, as well. And it's a bit
Not
about
naming names.
but I guess that's what people are in for the ride. It's not something where you have to use a currency because your government has mandated this is the national currency. It's a very opt-in thing. So I think we've seen people opt in. I think over the last year in the pandemic, you've seen the share market increase. As much of their meme coins, there are meme stocks as well
Mm.
right now,
Yeah.
and people are looking for ways to entertain themselves to a certain extent, to invest and to grow wealth in a time where things seem quite uncertain, and I think that's just a sort of expression of society through currency right now. So just like social media trends, TikTok dances in this age, people have decided to say, hey, this is where I choose to invest in meme stocks and meme coins. Again,
Yeah.
not for everyone, not
Mm.
definitely for myself. I'm quite a conservative
I
portfolio sort of person, but yeah.
That's so interesting, actually, Ash. I never thought about it like that, but that does make perfect sense. Just all these people sitting inside, you're in lockdown, you've got more time to read, you're going to throw yourself into this, and that entertainment angle, which is not, you don't see that in other investment classes, I suppose, as much. There's probably a bit more mucking around in the stock market these days, but yeah, not so much in other classes. It's kind of interesting, and main in the average Joe as well, having just a bit of a go because they're hearing all their friends talk about it at a dinner party. Like you said, that social aspect.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen this happen in the last bull run as
Mm,
well. Prices may fall a bit, people might get a bit, quiet about it, but I think definitely the ways of using cryptocurrency and expressing yourself through cryptocurrency are
mm,
definitely growing. I think one of the first sort of hot debates in this community was, is this a form of payment or is it a sort of wealth?
mm,
And it became such a heated topic that the crypto community had a split in the early days, with Bitcoin splitting into, forking into a different coin, and people are still asking those questions right now. And I guess one form of expression is commerce
mm,
in cryptocurrency.
mhm,
But I think especially with this NFT movement, and people, tokenizing their art, selling their art pieces as tokens, I think that's another sort of expression and use of crypto.
mm. And a really positive one as well. I mean, this is quite exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just so surprised that the number of mainstream artists who have decided that, um, they they for some reason want to be in this movement as well. I recently bought a painting in crypto. The artist says he's going to release more of his things in cryptocurrency. So both physical and digital artwork is now being sold in, and music as well. I mean, the NBA has right now NFT trading cards with basketball, like a mini video on it, and
Mm.
those are being traded for hundreds of thousands of dollars as well. So um, I think there are, ways that people are still expressing themselves through
Yeah,
cryptocurrencies.
yeah. Such a great way to put it as well. Can you explain forks to us?
Yeah, so as I was, alluding to the split in the Bitcoin community, I think one interesting aspect is, Bitcoin is a experiment of like computation as money, right? And part of that is code, and code is also open source in this case. So everyone can make their own other coin if they wish. There's no technological secrets for the most part, in Bitcoin's design and architecture. And I guess that's why we've seen so many coins come up, um, basically based on the same, uh, at least initially on Bitcoin's infrastructure.
Mm,
So every time, just like open source source code, when you decide to branch off and make some edits on your own, I guess that's a fork. And people have forked Bitcoin in different ways as well. But I think more interestingly is, when you see a fork, it also usually divides a community in
mm,
some way. So when you fork a code, you're not only just making some changes to how you say this thing should run, but the community will also say, hey, I like this change, or I don't like this change because it benefits me or doesn't benefit me. Hence,
mm.
I'm going to follow this new line of gospel, if you will.
Yes. So how does someone who's probably like a passive Bitcoin owner and you owned it pre-fork, which tranche of the fork do you now own?
That's a
Does
good
that question
question.
make sense? Like, how do
Yeah,
I know? Yeah, how do you know what camp you're in if you never
yeah.
consciously or actively chose
In some
one or the other?
cases,
Did I default to one?
if the fork is non-contentious, as in both parties sort of quietly agree to go their own way in a positive way, you might have two sets of coin right now.
Mm.
In some cases, that's not always possible, depending on how you held the coin, or what the risks in the network if there is some contention. But yeah, there are cases where you have two coins, or there's cases where you only can have one coin on each chain.
Mm. How interesting. How do you guys deal with that from a tech perspective? Is there anything that you have to do at Coinjar when people have that
Yeah,
in
I
their
mean, like,
wallet? Yeah, is that messy?
we don't support too many forks because
Yeah.
it's just that there is some sort of technical risk in doing that. We encourage users to self custody if they have the expertise to do so,
Mm,
and benefit from some of these changes in the network. But there are all kinds of weird and wonderful things in this, such as airdrops, which are free money that lands in
mm,
your wallet,
yeah.
which, unless you have a special setup to receive these coins, it's not always possible. So we try and give as much of that benefit to our users as possible. But I think going back to why we exist, it's this objectively better. And objectively better, sometimes you have trade-offs. For instance, we just have a limited number of coins on a website, which is not what everybody wants. Some people want the most speculative, top 500 coin or whatever. I guess we don't feel that that's the best product or the best benefit to our users. So, I think that there are trade-offs to be made as well.
It must be tempting sometimes. You're getting overwhelming requests because Dogecoin's definitely not one that you're carrying. Is it hard
Yeah,
sometimes when your customers are screaming for something, or are they? I don't know. How does that
yeah,
go?
I think everything's just to be considered. I think we have an open mind. I think it's, can we add an asset in a way that's safe for our platform? Is this asset have longevity, or a community that's not going to disappear overnight and maybe lose the trust? The founder of Dogecoin is actually an Australian who sold all his Dogecoin and says he never wants anything to do with it in the early days. So
Wow.
yeah, so I think that's the community has obviously carried on, but I think those are all things to consider when adding new assets to our platform.
We've got a pretty decent history, Aussie innovators, don't we? When you think about it being early days and in the crypto sphere.
Yeah, I think especially in Australia, we've had quite a few crypto successes, sung or unsung. I think there is, per capita, Australia definitely punches above its weight in crypto adoption. The best reason I could give for that is probably we've got fairly good tech literacy in the country. We also have a slightly higher propensity for risk in the country as well. Incomes are slightly higher than I think most other places as well. I think which gave rise to everyone having the chance to be a bit more experimental on what they want to do with their money. So yeah, I think there are quite a few Australians and Australian founded projects which in the crypto sphere, but maybe not all of them are Australian based or exclusively Australian anymore.
I mean, you're not, so you're over in London now as well, and you moved to London a few years ago to found Coinjar over there. How do you find the difference between the UK and Australian scenes when it comes to crypto, or even just tech and entrepreneurship in general?
I think startups are being built all over the world right now. I think London was traditionally the home of fintech. I think that's what really drew us here. All kinds of things have changed since. We've got Brexit. Fintech is growing at different speeds. I think in Australia we've got some standouts in the industry, the buy now pay later scene with Afterpay and Zip Money. Neobanks seem to be the UK's strength. We've got Monzo and Starling here. So I guess as a market, there are similarities. I think in terms of the use of the language. I guess the demographics are more or less the same, but it's also a much larger market as well, and I think that's what we're starting to find. And I think the propensity for growth here is very high if you can get across. There's a lot more competition, but I think the market definitely is something that we have come to enjoy. I guess it's a lot just more of everything here. So I think even for our user acquisition, we're finding it's a lot cheaper in the UK to acquire new users than it is in Australia, just because it's getting a bit crowded with many crypto operators around.
Yeah. What is your vision for Coinjar? Where do you want to take things in the next few years?
Um, I think just going back to why we're here, this is objectively better financial experiences, and I think right now it's squarely in the investment space. I think that's where most people are benefiting from Coinjar. I think there are different aspects of digital currency that can be interpreted in this. Lending and borrowing is a big segment that's growing. How do you offer credit to users? Not through a traditional system, but through a sort of a decentralized system. At the end of the day, there needs to be some sort of uh, you know entity to deliver that services to users. I think the dream is to be completely decentralized, but right now you still need a company. I hope that's us where we can sort of transfer all the benefits of this decentralized economy, put it into a very easy to use way, and deliver that to our users. So we've seen some, as you mentioned earlier, some of our features. We've got a debit card that helps users spend cryptocurrency. We've got a wallet, or as we call a digital currency account, to send and receive. And we're looking at more investment specific types of services for cryptocurrency, and also I guess also lending and borrowing, or interest bearing as well, which I guess it's called staking in this.
Yeah. Maybe shorting some cryptos as well. I wonder, I was thinking the other day, actually looking on your site, I thought that is quite clever. I hadn't seen it anywhere else, so I don't know if you'd come up with it or it was somewhere, but the idea of sort of smaller coin funds, so bundling them up so you could buy small bundles of particular types of coins.
Yeah.
Is that something that you guys came up with or something you adopted from somewhere else?
Yeah, I think inspiration came from we started a managed investment scheme in Australia at one time. Wasn't very popular, but I think through that we did a lot of research into how to cheaply hold a portfolio or basket of cryptocurrencies, and how to track the price movements. And I think that sort of ended into a more retail friendly approach of Coinjar Bundles. So Coinjar Bundles are a collection of cryptocurrencies that we've made, and you can either put a one-time deposit in or a recurring payment in. So as like a dollar cost averaging, if you want to put $10 of your pay every couple of weeks into cryptocurrency, that's a great way for you to sort of smooth out the volatility, and at the same time invest in I guess the select few cryptocurrencies that we believe have good characteristics that let them sit well in a bundle.
Super smart. I mean, it's just sort of mirroring a lot of equities products as well, isn't it? It just makes it a lot more accessible for less sophisticated investors to be able to come in with confidence, as you said, to some of the more reliable cryptos out there. Very clever.
Yeah. Now there are so many cryptocurrencies that to choose from, and to try and get your head around. So I think having some sort of a clear grouping helps just balancing your portfolio.
So cool. I just have a sort of one more area I'd love to get into, which is sort of other technology that maybe you see or you think might be coming. It might even be just more blockchain related. Is there anything that you as a team are watching, or that you think might be coming down the line as there is we see blockchain being more widely adopted or cryptos becoming more mainstream? What are sort of things to watch, do you think?
Wow.
Good question.
Yeah, I think that the lending and borrowing is still, it's coming up. Right now, people are starting to earn interest on their cryptocurrencies, and especially being in this part of the world where interest rates can be negative sometimes. I think that's a weird way that the world works. You store money, it loses value. I think some of these interest-bearing products are becoming more interesting in a world where inflation seems to be increasing. You know, you're not sure where you want to put your money. So I think like staking, and also crypto loans, you know, probably the next thing which we see make an impact.
Mm. Yeah. So cool.
And Fiona, what's your experience so far with cryptocurrency? Have you dabbled since, you know, the first time you heard about it?
Yes. Well, you encouraged me to purchase one coin, which I did back in 2014, and then I forgot about it for a very long time. And then in 2018, when that spike happened, my brother and I, who was at the talk with me actually, he and I started to play around with a couple of kind of arbitrage opportunities that were happening between some of the sites, just because the price, obviously being unpegged, was fluctuating so much that he'd identified some of these arb opportunities. So we were kind of playing with that a little bit, and there was Litecoin at the time had just come up, and Ripple had just had a spike. So we got in, I think it went up around that time, and then it came right off a cliff. So I'm pretty sure I bought in at Ripple at the absolute peak that it was back then. So a really great experience with Bitcoin, and then a terrible experience with Ripple, but again, held on, and that's kind of seen a little bit of recovery. So I haven't been super active, but it absolutely fascinates me. So my background is in equities. Like when I started Naked, it was working over in London in the equity markets. And I just see so many parallels. So it's so interesting to hear what you're talking about in terms of innovation within the crypto sphere, because there are so many parallels between equity products and I think cryptos as well, and notwithstanding the fact that they seem to be quite closely correlated in terms of some of the moves, you know, the types of market psychology and things that you see when people are piling in, and, you know, when they're bearish or bullish, or all of the things in between. So I mean, this has just inspired me even more, I think, to get more into it, because I find it bizarre that people don't actually believe in large scale adoption. I think it makes perfect sense. I think given, you know, any kind of arguments against it that are talking about, you know, it not being as safe as really, you know, the basic kind of commodities or gold or any of these sorts of things is kind of just mad, because, you know, nothing is normal anymore. You know, technology, as they say, is indistinguishable from magic. So why do we think that, you know, it's bizarre that certain things like cryptos have value, when I think they make more sense than mainstream currencies in a lot of countries these days.
Yeah, I think one of the narratives that, you know, when we first started was, you know, do you think you are too early? You know, are you too early for this? And, you know, is it too early, too late? I think it's, you know, it's never too early. You know, if you think about the internet, I think recently I've been thinking quite a bit about the dot-com boom era. And I think, I mean, both in terms of investing, of how, you know, a lot of people were into retail investing at that time. And sure, there was a come off for a bit, and it took some time, but I mean, 20 years later, I mean, the internet's, you know, definitely lived up to all the potential.
Exactly.
But obviously it's been it's taken some time to get here. So yeah, I don't think if anything, you know, um, still quite early, but not too early, never too early.
So true. What is your, I don't know, you probably will get a bit reluctant talking about this, I guess, for it to be seen as some kind of financial advice, but with all the disclaimers in there, what do you think is the most promising coin out there at the moment? If there's someone who's listening and they're like, do you know what, Ash has actually just inspired me, I'm gonna get in now. I've been
I
sitting on
think
the fence.
I think all the coins on our platform, we've got about, I think, 25 at this time, have potential. Um, I think it's really hard to say. Um, I guess in terms, if you think about price, you know, the smaller ones always have the most to gain. Um, but I guess, you know, not everyone does this for the largest price appreciation. So I think especially with some of these new products like staking, where you're saying, well, do I look for price appreciation, or do I want a constant sort of a dividend style investment return, right? So
Mm,
sometimes you would have to stake a coin, and for that you might have to give up price increases as well. So
mm,
I think that there are different dynamics now. It's not just which one can moon rocket. I think there is still uh, an element of that, and there will be a constant in that. But I think that the game is m- more nuanced now. People talk
mm,
about the same way you were going arbitraging between exchanges. People do yield farming as well, being able to borrow crypto on one end and
mm.
and invest it on the other end as well, right? So
Yeah,
uh, depending on how sophisticated you are as I guess an investor,
yeah.
or how much risk you want to take on it, I guess that there are a few options right now. I mean, I'm not a huge crypto investor or a speculator myself. I think I'm more, I guess, company builder.
Yes. Yeah. Slow and steady. I think that's smart anyway, when you've been in there. I feel like we might need a little glossary underneath this podcast as well, just when you're saying yield farming, then. That's another one that I haven't heard, which is so interesting. And staking as well. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. As many financial products as there are, people are going to come up with. And just like other financial markets, I guess people are moving so quickly, playing around with different structures and different ways of cutting things. It's going to take a long time for probably the rest of, definitely regulators and these other people to catch up, I think, which is always the case in financials. So it's interesting. Mm.
Yeah, in the UK here, I mean, we're still waiting for a crypto asset registration. So the FCA um, has come up with a new ruling saying that all crypto companies in the UK have to be on this register. So still waiting for that. They've made a deadline of, it was supposed to be the end of last year, but I think that's
Mm.
overwhelming response. So they gave everyone a 6-month extension. So I think hopefully by the middle of this year, we should have this authorization in the UK, which is something Australia probably will adopt in the future, but doesn't quite have yet.
So what does that mean? That means that that there's sort of more complex products and things that everyone can begin to offer. Is that what that's
Yeah,
about?
I guess it just shows that which crypto companies are legitimate and which are not. And I think
Yeah.
there's a certain element of, well, the government does want to regulate this behavior to a certain extent. It might not be possible, but there's consumer protection to think about. There are risks in the financial system, and I guess cryptocurrency and cryptocurrency companies are becoming a much larger part of the economy. Yeah, whether people choose to believe it or not, I think the larger ones have received banking charters, in the US, and hold assets which rival, some neobanks. And even for us, I think for our size, we've got a few 100,000 users.
Mm.
The assets under management for us and some other cryptocurrency companies would easily rival some Australian neobanks as well.
Mm. That will be interesting to see. That could be another, I guess, a good signal, a big bellwether for the whole industry itself, isn't it? Once regulators start taking things a lot more seriously. Does it make things harder, or is it actually, are you welcoming more of that? Is that then that kind of sorts out the junk, I guess, from the people who are
Yeah,
serious from the other
yeah. I mean, I
market
think the way
shops?
we've built our company has always been, in the regulated space. So I think this par for the course. I mean, if anything, I would wish it move a bit faster, just because it's sort of inevitable for us. There are some sort of crypto companies who can operate just in the crypto sphere, but I think more and more we're seeing at some point regulation is catching up with everyone. If you need access to direct access to the existing financial system, they just expect you to play by the same rules.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Okay.
Ash.
Thanks, Fiona. I know it's an early morning, but yeah, thanks for having me.